When you know what you're doing, updating or fixing a website can be both interesting and even somewhat easy, especially when you're using a website builder or a content management system like WordPress or Shopify. In this video, we're going to briefly look at if and when you should try to work on your website and when you're better off calling for help. There are a few categories of website work that you may encounter. The first is making basic content edits. Maybe you want to add or remove a team member, post a blog article, or add a new product to your e-commerce site. Most content management systems, or CMS for short, make this relatively easy, and they also attempt to accommodate for responsive design, so the content looks good across the various web browsers on both desktop and mobile devices. Two quick tips here. First, be aware, some manual tweaking is typically needed to ensure a proper display across all platforms. Unfortunately, the different technologies don't all read the content the same way. And second, once you do finish, be sure to clear your cache. Sometimes the site or servers will display old content until the cache is cleared. This is a common frustration for early stage web content editors and even more experienced folks who are surprised that the changes that they just made don't appear for some reason. It's not because you did the work wrong, you just have one more step, and that step is often forgotten and sometimes a bit crazy making. All that said, with the exception of having design enhancements for responsiveness, this category of work is typically the lowest risk and the easiest to manage. So if you're going to work on your website and you don't have much experience, this category of work overall is the safest. The next category, ongoing website maintenance. You may have an out-of-date plugin or extension that needs updating, or maybe you're running an older version of PHP. These updates are important for website security to protect against hacks and other general vulnerabilities, as well as overall site performance optimization. Doing this work can be somewhat straightforward, and in many cases there are tools that can do at least some of the minor updates automatically. But we don't recommend using those, and we'll come back to that in just a second. You may also want to optimize a page so it loads faster for SEO and better positioning in SERPs, or search engine results pages, or to implement various security best practices. These are all important improvements to managing a successful website, and it's good to stay on top of keeping the site as current as possible. Your website will be more secure, it'll load faster, and it'll show up higher in search rankings. However, this category of work carries an even greater risk than the first category, and as I said before, I'm still going to come back to that risk in just a moment. The final category of potential work is the reactive work, or fixing what is broken. Are you seeing a 404 error? Is a security certificate showing as invalid for some reason, or not showing at all? Does the menu not display correctly? Or maybe an image on a page has disappeared? Maybe you suspect you've been hacked and you need to identify and remove malicious code or malware. Here is where I'm going to dive in just a bit more to the risk involved in working on your website, because these issues present pretty consistently across various web platforms. So many elements of a website are interrelated that even a small change can have unintended consequences. What seems like it was supposed to be a simple update, automated by one of those web tools that we mentioned before, and theoretically entirely safe for anyone to execute, those can end up affecting the CSS, and now it takes an even deeper level of knowledge to set things right. Or removing the suspicious code might end up removing more than you need, and now some elements of the site don't function properly. So this is where you need to pause and decide if this is something that you want to tend to on your own. Some people love this challenge, and if that's you, great. Roll up your sleeves, kick on some music, have a blast. Here's a note of caution. It's good to have a contingency plan just in case. Let me give you a few examples. You might have a development environment and try the fixes there first. Then you can simply migrate the successful updates over to your live environment. Or if you're working in a live environment and you break something, then what's your next step? Well, typically you can have a backup of the site, and then you can simply restore that backup. Though when that backup was made is going to determine what you're going to have when you're done, so it's good to make that backup just before you do any updates. So in this case, just make sure you know how to access the backup and how to restore it relatively quickly. If that's not going to be an option, do you have other team members in place, either internal or outsourced, that can jump in and help? Do they need much lead time, or can they dive in right away? And how long is it okay for your site to be down in the meantime? So, All of this is to say that if you want to dive in and work on the site because it sounds interesting and it's a skill that you have or that you want to have, just be sure to have a backup plan in place and dive in. Now, from a business optimization standpoint, you may want to also consider the opportunity cost here. In your role and with everything that needs to happen at your organization, is this the best use of your time? It's true, some of today's tools have been simplified enough that managing a website is not rocket science. But on a spectrum of things that are going to move your organization forward and how your skills can be best applied, where does updating a plugin on a WordPress site fit? Here, you have to balance the cost of a web professional with the opportunity cost of doing the work yourself. It may be a skill that you want to cultivate and be entirely worth your time. Or it may be much faster and smarter to pass the work to somebody that spends all day, every day, doing this work already. We've all lost entire afternoons to the rabbit hole of IT issues and troubleshooting, and that is certainly a possibility when you're working on a website. So, a quick review. Making basic edits to existing body copy on pages that already exist is the least risky work that you can do. If you're going to be regularly making edits to website copy, this is something you can probably get away with if you are interested in doing this kind of work. Adding new pages or new content increases risk because you can get into formatting issues related to the responsive design and the myriad of devices that display the web pages. So this is really next level work. Certainly learnable, but it will take more time and introduce some new problems for sure. So are you ready for that web development effort? From there, you get into the technology updates, some of which are as easy as updating an app on your phone, but often those simple updates break other site elements, and fixing those requires an even next level of knowledge and technical support. We really don't recommend doing those updates on your own unless you have some deeper knowledge of HTML or some coding experience, or at least a backup team in place. So, to summarize, working on websites can be interesting, can be very rewarding work for many, and if it sparks joy for you, by all means, have at it. Start with the simple things, like basic edits to existing copy, and then grow from there. But if you have a long and growing list of things to do in other work categories, working on a website may very well present too high of an opportunity cost and simply not be worth your time. We hope this video helps you think through when it makes sense to do the work yourself and when to enlist support. If you have any other questions or would like to see videos on other topics, let us know.